To get started building Windows Phone applications, you need to install Visual Studio, the IDE or integrated development environment that is provided by Microsoft. Visual Studio comes in many flavors, from free versions for individual users to paid versions for large-scale projects and distributed development teams. For most projects, the free Express version of Visual Studio provides easy-to-use and powerful tools to make developing applications for Windows Phone easier. If you want to learn more about Visual Studio, check out Visual Studio Essential Training here in the lynda.com online training library, which goes into much more depth about the application. Again, the version we are going to work with is Visual Studio Express. There are multiple versions of Visual Studio Express for different projects. To get started, we need to go to MSDN, or the Microsoft Developer Network website. You should bookmark this site because it has a ton of useful information on Windows Phone development. So to get started, head over to dev.windowsphone.com. From here, you can download the SDK, or Software Development Kit, which includes all the tools you'll need, including Visual Studio 2012 Express for Windows Phone. Click on the Get SDK link on the page to get started. There are multiple versions of the SDK available. We are going to work with Windows Phone 8, so you will want the SDK 8.0 listed at the top. Click the Download link to get started. You'll be prompted to download a small installer file. Click Run and the application will download and start in your system. The installer screen for the SDK will appear. To continue, you'll need to agree to the terms and conditions provided by Microsoft to use the software, and click Install. When you do this, the installer will download the full SDK, which is about 1.6 gigabytes in size. So be sure you have an internet connection on during the installation process. After the installation is complete, you'll have the option to launch Visual Studio to get started. In Windows 8, an icon for Visual Studio 2012 and other tools will be placed on the far right of your start screen. After the install is complete, you'll have the option to launch Visual Studio and get started. If you're on Windows 7, you can launch Visual Studio Express for Windows Phone from the Start menu, under Windows Phone 8.0 SDK. Under Windows 8, an icon for Visual Studio 2012 will also appear in the Start screen on the right-hand side. Now that the tools are installed, we can now walk through how to create a new project and take a look at some of the basics of the Visual Studio interface.